Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Today is a very special day, and we are going to talk about the chronological authenticity of the Western literatures, which they call it the Bible. And I have very, very special guest, a very good friend, and a very great researcher in this area. You love his videos. Last time you loved his videos so much, it has crossed all our records right now. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Vedveer Arya.
Namaste Aditya ji,
Namaste and
and
welcome to the show.
I wish all the viewers very happy Winter Solstice Day and very happy the birthday of Mitra, Sun God, and a Merry Christmas to all.
So when we talk about this issues of the quotations are whether it's a biblical truth or not. If the Bible itself was incomplete, now I'll quote another great researcher, Prabhupada said it, that these
Yes.
books are artificial, written by man, they have a beginning and an end date, and intelligent people usually reject these books. He spoke about the Bible, Quran, and the Old Testament. Now,
Yes.
it is actually happening that when people
Yeah.
become more educated, especially in Southern California where we live, more and more people are connecting to Veda, or
Yes.
if they do not have the karma good enough to go to Veda, they are actually going to Buddhism
Yes.
and trying to find the concepts of dharma and karma, because Buddhism has taken all these concepts from Sanatan Dharma.
Yes.
So it is actually happening. What is your view on this?
All books have been written by human beings only.
Mhm.
Whatever the revelation of God, it's okay. Like any new discoveries, scientific or philosophical or any new discoveries by human being, because some great human beings who contributed a lot to the human society. So we can say that entire knowledge is divine because it has been passed on to one generation at another. Nobody can claim that this is my original theory or that, because you have imbibed so much of traditional and the scientific knowledge, then you could come out to the conclusion in a particular theory. So that's why the knowledge is divine, you can say, because it's not a one human being's contribution in that sense. But all books, whether religious or other than religious, all books have been written by human beings. So Bible, even Quran, it's not any revelation at all. But there is a huge difference between Abrahamic text as well as the East. East means the all Indians and the Indian text and other. There is a continuous philosophical tradition and very profound thinking about the human life and others. So there is a universal approach to the various theories presented in Vedas and other texts. Whereas the Abrahamic text like Bible and Quran, it's actually edited and many times this has been rewritten, especially if we separate it out to the historical text like Genesis and others. The Old Testament has a history and a Jewish history and how they from starting from the Adam to Noah, then from flood to Abraham, Abraham to Moses, and Moses to David and Solomon, and up to the Achaemenid era, the first temple destruction, then second temple destruction. That history given in the Old Testament, it's actually an historical account maintained in the Bible. Second, other things have been evolved based on the conflicts and the situations faced by a particular section of people. This is the reason initially the 10 commandments, then there was some changes when the Christianity evolved and they adopted Old Testament into a New Testament. So certain books have been deleted and edited. So this happened over a period, even up to probably up to 14th and 15th century also last. So the Bible available today is maybe updated somewhere in the 500, 600 years before or even later. The same thing happened the Quran also. I don't know what kind of it. The Quran was written only after the 70, 80 years of the Muhammad's death only. So it's not that somebody got some revelation and written those things. This is the reason why they reflect a particular mindset of a medieval era, like in the Quran and other things, because those are not a very established civilization like Indian civilization, as a more than 10 to 15,000 years of continuous civilization. That civilization gradually evolved very profound approach to the human existence and what kind of a perfect human society should be in the world. So based on that, a very value-based approach towards the life, towards the philosophy, everything. But that I found lacks in the Abrahamic other things. But later they adopted certain values that's based on the influence on each other's societies. But the basic instinct, because if you see, generally the monotheism is actually the hatred against the other religions. It's not a kind of a negative theory than a kind of a positive theory. Monotheism always say that there were not more than one God. So it means you are starting with the negativism. So yeah, that led to actually finally the way the Quran propagates. So that finally leads to a hatred towards other religions or others who practice other than even a particular monotheism. It's not all monotheisms are not accepted in Quran also. It's only accepted one particular monotheism, and that's why they actually don't propagate the monotheism. They just propagate hatred against other religions and other schools of philosophies. This is the basic problem with the Abrahamic text.
Even the Jewish faith, the Israeli Jewish are special than Gentile Jewish. Even that is the concept over there, that the Jewish soul is separate than any other soul. They claim it.
That's okay. But if you see Jewish early, before Moses, after Moses, they became more monotheistic, not before that.
Yes, exactly.
Monotheistic. But it's more the history, Jewish, how they face the problems in the area. The history is more fascinating. And yes, the Jewish, because all monotheism was influenced by the finally Zoroastrianism. And the Zoroastrianism is more ancient than any other monotheism exists. And that monotheism also, prior to that, it was an Asura Veda. I think I explained earlier when Asuras migrated during the Rigvedic era from India to Persia. Then after over a period, Asura Veda has been rewritten and recompiled by Zoroaster. And he founded the monotheism to probably to eliminate the conflict in the society. To unite a society, he may have thought one approach, because there were also fights in means various other like mini dynasties and other, even within the society, various factions. Probably he wanted to unite with the monotheism. Probably it was a kind of a religio-political theory what Zoroaster could actually establish at that time. Then monotheism actually influenced the birth of Abrahamism.
So let's begin over there, and let's and
so what actually today we are going to discuss the historical content in the Old Testament and the New Testament are actually factually correct or not, and second, what actually the chronological problem led to actually kind of a modern historians, they selectively accept some information from the Bible and they reject certain things. And then finally establish a one particular chronology, what has been adopted last 400 years. So that actually led to a chronological error of 660 years in the world chronology. I have explained, I think, earlier also. Today, again, let us review the same chronology again. Why I am going to, actually, I have established that there is a chronological error in the word chronology also. This I discovered through Indian chronology, because Indian chronology, traditional chronology, had a very perfect chronology from Mahabharata to till medieval era. But during the colonial era, had, due to two basic mistakes. Those mistakes have been taken place before the arrival of the Western historians. That Shaka era had two different epochs, Shaka and Shakanta. But over a period, we started assuming both are identical. Due to that, 660 years chronology has been brought forward. But one very interesting thing happened in the history. Eastern Church, because after when Western Church collapsed, or that Roman Empire, then the Byzantine Empire became more prominent. These Eastern Church are the Christians of the Eastern Church. They were originally, they used to study Indian calendars. So Severus Sebok, there is an evidence. Severus Sebok, he was a very prominent bishop of Syrian Church. He actually challenged the Greek Christian, saying that don't think that you are the more intelligent person in the world since you know Greek language. There are Indians, they are the best in the astronomy, and their mathematics is the best in the world. So these are the words of the Severus Sebok. And finally, it's actually a historical an event mentioned by the same Severus Sebok. When he challenged the Greek Christians, they actually convened a debate, and finally they fixed the debate and declared the Severus Sebok, the Syrian bishop, as a loser, and they forced him to pay some amount, 10,000 or 20,000 pounds as a penalty. But actually, he was writing on his deathbed when he was almost last 1 year of his in life. So he actually said that real astronomy is actually the Indians and the Babylonians of the. So if you want to have it, because Easter date was the biggest contentious issue in every council of this Christian councils took place, starting from Council of Nicaea onwards. So these problems today, let us discuss what actually led to this chronological error. Just I'll share my presentation. When I'm talking about the historical and chronological, the reliability of the Bible, this means the information, especially the chronological and the historical information given in the Bible, as well as the genealogical information given in the Bible, are whether reliable or just a concoctions or a misplaced historical information. This is the one we are, I think, last 400 years. It was actually the James Ussher, thereafter Lightfoot and the Newton. They established that Jesus was born on first reading. Considering that Anno Domini and even the Exegus, his Easter table, based on that, the historians established that Jesus was born in first AD. But actually, that's not correct. As per my dating, Jesus was born on 9th January 660 BC. Okay, at least 660 years before what actually modern historians say. So prior to that, I want to just refer to the Aine Akbariya of Abul Fadl. In case, just to explore that whether there was any dispute about the date of Jesus' birth in the history. So what actually Abul Fadl says in his book Aine Akbari, he actually is referring to a dispute bit about the date of Jesus' birth. Actually, there were two different Christian traditions. He is actually referring to what he says exactly. The Christian era, this begins with the birth of Jesus Christ, and the commencement of their year, some take to be the entry of the sun in Capricorn, others from the 8th degree of the same. It means a particular Christian tradition counted the Christian era, the epoch of Christian era, when sun was in the 8th degree of the Capricorn, Makara Rashi in Indian calendar. But there was another tradition. They actually considered the epoch of Christian era in the 0 degree of the Capricorn. There is the 8 to 9 degrees difference between these two. Considering the precession of equinoxes, if we take roughly 9 degrees, 1 degree precession in 72 into 9 is around 648 years. So there was the difference of 648 years, or what I'm saying, 660 years roughly, was the difference between these two different traditions. If there was a well established the date of Christian Jesus birth existed in the historical tradition, then why there was a dispute about the, or a kind of a two different traditions existed regarding the Jesus birth? This indicates that there was some problem in actually the epoch of Christian era. Since this dispute existed in the history, what I am saying that the epoch of Christian era, what we are considering in first AD, actually does not deserve to be a sheet anchor of world chronology, because there was a dispute. Now you have to resolve it. But nobody ever, till date, ever considered this fact, and nobody rejected that why a particular Christian tradition considered the commencement of the Christian era from the 8th degree of the Capricorn. They all just start 0 degree and then say that that was the winter solstice day when Jesus was born. But a particular Christian tradition considered the Jesus birth in the 8th degree of the Capricorn. This fact has never ever validated by the historians. That's why what I'm saying, there is a problem in dating of Jesus birth. So what we have to do, we have to arrive the world chronology up to Augustus without referring to Jesus birth. Once it means we need to establish the ancient epochs or ancient sheet anchors for the Western chronology, instead of blindly considering the first AD as the sheet anchor and calculating the Western chronology backwards. That may be very wrong methodology. So this is how, what I'm saying, that there is a chronological error of 660 years in the Western chronology, because Eastern Church followed the Indian Shaka calendar for fixing or for calculating the date of Easter, or Easter table during the somewhere first century onwards, or even prior or later also. But when Shaka calendar was reset in 78 AD, so the same thing they started following again, because they are referring to the Indian calendar. So they just calculated the Jesus birth with reference to the Indian Shaka calendar. Since Indian Shaka calendar was reset in 78 AD, similarly, Jesus birth date also has been brought forward by 660 years. This is what actually my finding indicates. So now let us see what are the problems in the account given in New Testament regarding the Jesus birth. Now there are four famous Gospels: Luke, Matthew, Mark, and John. The Luke and Matthew, what actually they are dating the Jesus birth within the rule of the King Herod. But the problem is he died in 4 BC as per the chronology given by the modern historians. If Herod died in 4th BC, so Jesus' birth has to be placed at least 1 year before the Herod. So you have to place him in the 5th BC. But that will lead to a huge chronological error of 5 years in entire Western chronology. Kepler tried to work out the conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and he fixed the date somewhere 6th or 7th BC. But that is also not correct, because when you arrive the chronology based on because if you fix the date in 7th BC, then you have to go back to similar 42 years for the Augustus. If you are shifting, then the even beginning of the Julian calendar will change. So due to all these problems, the modern historian simply overlooked this error and then just say, no, Jesus was born in 1st AD, but Herod died in 4th BC. This is the biggest inconsistency in the Western chronology given by the modern historians. Then there is another problem. The Luke, in his gospel, he says that Jesus was born when the Quirinus, he conducted the census. But as per the chronology given by the Western historians, The Quirinus was the Syrian governor, Roman governor in Syria. So he was actually appointed in 6th AD. So you can't place Jesus' birth before 6th AD. This is another problem. So what you have to do, as per the Luke, you have to date Jesus after 10 years of the death of Herod. So these are the two major problems the modern historians could not solve. In another, the Star of Bethlehem mentioned by the in the Gospel of Matthew, he clearly gives that when Jesus was born, a conjunction of two planets has to be established. But in first AD, there was no conjunction of planets, not even 21st December, not on 6th January, or anywhere near to December or January at all. Therefore, the first AD, you can't establish as a Jesus birth the facts given in the Bible. Now, let us go through one by one how the historians or various other Christian scholars gave the date of Jesus' birth. Eusebius, he says the 3rd year of 194th Olympiad and 42nd year of Augustus and 28th year after the subjugation of Egypt, because we have to calculate the date of first from the Augustus when he became the Council of Rome, the Rome, and thereafter when he defeated or he subjugated Egypt. From there, the 28th year. And Hippolytus, he was, I think, earliest person who actually gave the real. It was a Wednesday, and the 8th day after the calends of January, and it was the 42nd year, and as well as the 5500th year from Adam. Then this is another very interesting fact by the Epiphanes. He says that Jesus Christ was born in the 42nd. So everybody is consistent that Jesus was born in the 42nd year of Augustus. When Augustus was consul for the 13th time with the Silvanus on the 8th day before the Ides of January. So here Ides means full moon. We have to take full moon. It means 8th day before Ides means, if we calculate the date in Indian calendar, it has to be Ashtami. 8th, Shukla Ashtami, we can say. It means 8th day of the bright fortnight of the particular month in the. So it's actually a date in the lunar calendar. Because prior to Julian calendar, Romans followed the lunisolar calendar. So they generally used to refer to the how many days before Purnima or full moon, or sometimes calends means almost beginning or new moon. So these are the two generally. There was a kind of a tradition to refer to the particular days or tithis in a calendar. So, and he clearly says that 13 days after the winter solstice. Epiphanes is clearly saying that Jesus did not born on winter solstice. So 25th December was never the original date of Jesus' birth at all. This is the reason why Eastern Church, even today, the East Church, the followers of Eastern Church, even probably Russia and other countries, they celebrate Christmas on 6th January. Because you calculate 13 days starting from 25th January. So it is the 6th January. So that, 25th December. And you add another 13 days, it's the 6th January. This is the reason why the Eastern Church and the other, even today, some in the West, they celebrate Christmas on 6th January, not on 25th December. So it is absolutely a fake, or it's a myth, or I can say actually the 25th December was the birthday of Mithra god, celebrated by the Mithraists or pagans during the before the Augustus, or even before the Christians entered into Rome. Then these Romans started actually they started adopting the Roman traditions into Christianity. Actually they started corrupting the Roman tradition. Due to that, Roman kings actually they punished them. Due to that, the Christians claim that they were the martyrs. So this is how the martyrs tradition started. And finally, the Aurelian, he declared that 25th December will be celebrated as the Christmas. This is how the Christians cunningly took over the festival of Mithra's birth, and they started claiming that Jesus was born on 25th December. Actually, Jesus was born 13 days after the winter solstice. So this we will only come to know when we fix the exact date of the Jesus, then exact the birth year of the Jesus, then we can easily calculate the 13th day after the winter solstice. And even the Clement of Alexandria, he mentioned that Commodus, he was the Roman emperor in 194 years before. And Africanus, he actually referring to the resurrection of Jesus. Based on that, we can fix the date of Jesus' birth. And the New Testament says 312 years after the era of Alexandria. It means the Seleucid era. So when Jesus was 30 years old, he was baptized. So much this information is available. And even the Luke, he says that when Quirinus, he was the governor of Syria, and when he conducted the census, during that time Jesus was born. So these various facts are given by the various historians related to the birth of Jesus. We have to reconcile this entire information to arrive the date of Jesus' birth. So what I did, you have to correct the error of 660 years in the Western chronology also. When you go back to the 660 BC, the winter solstice took place on 20th December 661 BC. And from there, if you calculate the 13th day, that is the 9th January 660 BC, and that year 661 and 660 was actually the 42nd year of Augustus, and Seleucid era, what I have just mentioned above, is 972 BC. So there is an error because the dating of Alexander and Seleucus is based on the Jesus birth. If the epoch of Jesus birth itself is wrong, then the fixing of various epochs of eras has to be revised. So Nabonasarian era and the Roman era, Olympiad era, Seleucid era, we have to push backwards by 660 years. And 13 days after the winter solstice, so winter solstice took place on 28 December 661. And it was Wednesday, and the 8th day after the calends of January. Then the 8th day before the full moon, that 16th January 660 BC was the full moon day. So this is how we can establish every fact mentioned in the New Testament as well as by various historians or Christian scholars. So we can not only the facts related to the date of Jesus' birth, we can also reconcile the archaeoastronomical information provided by not only Bible as well as the historians also. So first is the Herod's date of death. How to fix it? Because the Matthew Gospel, it clearly says that Jesus was born during the reign of Herod, and who reigned over Judea. And Josephus, he mentions that his death was preceded by a total lunar eclipse. And this total lunar eclipse occurred on 25th November 659 BC. So almost 1 year, 10 months after the birth of Jesus, Herod died. So we can fix the chronology, Herod, but Herod chronology, we can only arrive when we correct the chronology of the Jewish history. So that we will discuss in other time, how to arrive the date of and his regnal period of the Herod. But this fact perfectly establishes that total lunar eclipse, and that was visible in Judea. And this lunar eclipse occurred, and this occurred only in the beginning of the winter season. And as per the various details available about this has to be somewhere in the November. the lunar eclipse only. So this is how we can fix the date of Herod's death. Then the census. Now this is the very curious problem here. As per the Gospel of Luke states that the Jesus was born when Quirinius, a governor of Syria, conducted census of Judea during the reign of Augustus. The Antiquities, the book written by Josephus, he says that the taxation of Judea was carried out only after it joined the Roman Empire. So Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod. Now the question is whether Quirinius became the governor of Syria during the reign of Herod or after his death. As per the modern historians, they just fixed the date of Quirinius after almost 10 years after the death of Herod. That is actually incorrect because they got some coin where it is written 36. So what they do, they fix the date of Quirinius 36 years starting from the Augustus era. But that actually is a mistake. What these coins actually is referring to 36th year of Caesar. But what we need to do, we have to count the 36th year from the Battle of Octim. But the 36th year of Augustus should be counted from 702 BCE. So there is whether we have how to calculate this, because as per the historical facts mentioned by various historians, Jesus was born in 42nd year of Augustus. And this Quirinius, he was the governor of Syria in the 36th year of Caesar. Certainly 6 to at least 8 years, 7 years before the Jesus birth, Quirinius was the governor of Syria. So there is a chronological error in dating of various governors of Syria. So we have to correct the chronology of the governors of Syria under the Roman Empire. So then we have to place Quirinius at least 7 years before the Jesus birth. What we need to do, we have to calculate this 36th year starting from the first year of the Augustus, not from the year of the Battle of Octim, or in which he subjugated the Egypt. So this is the error in dating of the Quirinius. If we correct it, the information given in Bible is perfectly okay. Now, another problem, the Hebrew text of Rabbi, what he says that the Jewish astrologer, actually the Messiah would come from a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in the constellation of Sagittarius. So it's actually a kind of a reference, since the Christians, they claim that Jesus was the Messiah. So this Saturn and Jupiter conjunction occurred at least just 2 months before, not even 1 month, 15 days before, if we can say. 9th January 660 BCE was the birth of the Jesus. Then you have to go back to another 45 days. That is actually 25th November 661 BCE. The Saturn and the Jupiter were in a conjunction in the same constellation Sagittarius. So this is actually before the birth, what has been mentioned by the rabbinic text of the Hebrew text of a rabbinic tradition. And there is a reference in the New Testaments also. The Herod asked the astrologers where the king of Jews would be born. And they answered the Bethlehem and the birthplace. So it is clearly mentioned in the New Testament, Bethlehem is the birthplace of King David. Then Matthew says that then Herod sent the wise men, then when they have gone to Bethlehem, they have actually seen the conjunction of the planets. This is the reason the star, so-called star, was actually conjunction of 2 planets. That actually gives the very big star. So they thought that some new star appeared. Actually, that was not as any star appeared or any comet. It was a conjunction of 2 planets. So if you see on the 9th January 660 BCE, Jupiter and the Venus, they were in a conjunction even at the dawn when Jesus was born. And even after the 10 or 11 days, again, Jupiter and Mercury were in a conjunction. And these two events perfectly match with the account given in the Bible or in that Gospel of Matthew. But in the first AD, you cannot establish any conjunctions. Though I can see within 45, the 25th November 661 BCE, there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, as predicted by the rabbinic tradition, as well as the astronomical, the observation of a star, a big star mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, also matches with these two conjunctions occurred in 660 BC. So this is the reason why this date perfectly match with all the astronomical details given in Bible as well as in the rabbinic tradition. But first AD, you cannot establish any astronomical references related to the Star of Bethlehem. And there is another controversy about the genealogy of Jesus. This is actually the two different Gospels. One is the Matthew's and the Luke. Actually, Matthew's is giving starting from Abraham, is not going beyond the Abraham. Starting from Abraham, then up to David, then Solomon. Then he gives that Joseph and Jesus. It's only 40 or 41. There is a problem in this genealogy, and let us view the another genealogy given by the Luke. This is the Luke. He starts from the Adam to Abraham. Is the 22nd is the Abraham, but from there onwards he comes up to David, but he refers to a Nathan, not Solomon. Where the Matthew is going to say is saying that the Solomon was the actually the ancestor of the Jesus, where the Luke Gospel says that Nathan, he was actually another. Actually, is not so popular in the Bible at all because there is no mention in the Old. There is a minor reference in the Old Testaments also. David had two sons, Solomon and Nathan. So the Luke says that Jesus or Joseph, Jesus' father Joseph, was actually the descendant of the Nathan. And if we work out the chronological gap for the each person, then the information given by the Luke is more perfect because from David to Jesus, almost 42 generations, and that's perfectly matches with the time gap between the almost 1,000 years difference are between David and the Jesus. So this 42 generations is perfectly okay, and Joseph was the father. But later, what the Christian historians did it, no, both are totally different. What Matthews is giving actually the lineage of Joseph, and what Luke is giving here, he's actually giving is the lineage of Mary. But that's not true because in any Jewish tradition, there is only the patrilineage only. There is no way giving the maternal lineage in the Jewish tradition at all. So chronologically and the historically, if we say, and these errors do occur because probably Matthew simply followed the Old Testament and just added the Joseph and Jesus date or few other dates, where the Luke has given the exact genealogy of the Jesus. So as per my assessment, the Luke's gospel, the genealogy of the Jesus given by Luke is more authentic both ways, historically as well as the chronologically. So it's as per the Joseph, even the Joseph was the father. So that so-called the mythological explanation of the virgin conception is actually a kind of an expectation by the devotee Christians. It's not historical. Joseph and Mary. Joseph was the real biological father of Jesus. Now, this is the Jesus' birth and his genealogy. Now, how to arrive the date of Easter? Because arriving the date of Easter is the biggest contentious issue in every council. in Christian councils, I think all councils, I can say 99% of the councils actually debated over this, and this actually created a lot of even animosity between the numerous Christians scholars also at that time. So actually, how to arrive the date of Easter? It's very interesting because the Luke, he clearly says that Jesus was baptized when he was 30 years old in the 15th regnal year of Tiberius. And the all four Gospels state that Jesus was crucified during the time of Pontius Pilate, and he was the governor, Roman governor of Judea, because after the Herods, the Romans took over the Judea and they started appointing the governors. So the Tiberius was the Roman emperor, and under him, this Pontius Pilate, he was the governor of Judea, Roman governor of Judea during his time. And all four Gospels agree that Jesus was crucified on the day of Passover. A vernal equinox, or you can say Passover is a after vernal equinox. Actually, it's not the just vernal equinox. So after vernal equinox, Passover, and Passover Sabbath is actually a Saturday, and generally first Saturday celebrated by the Jewish tradition. So we have to match few things. First, the date was 14th Nisan. Nisan is a first month in the Jewish calendar, or sometimes it was intercalated also. But it's the first month of the Jewish calendar, in which the 14th Nisan is mentioned in various, even in the Bible, as well as by the various other historians. But modern historians fix his date on 3rd April 33 AD, considering the 15th Nisan. Not, it means there is a one-day error. They simply just don't accept this error. They say, no, one day is negligible for them. But the problem is, you have to have the crucified just a day before the Passover, 14th, because Passover has to be on the 15th of the Nisan. So, and the 15th has to be a Purnima, and the Purnima was on Sabbath, on Saturday. So it clearly mentioned that Jesus was crucified on Friday, around before the nightfall, means maybe 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Thereafter, because the weekdays in the Jewish tradition started after the sunset. So Friday ended on the sunset on the day of crucifix, when Jesus was crucified, and after sunset Saturday commenced. So that's why these are the weekdays as well as his age, both have to be reconciled when while arriving the date of Easter. But as per the definition given in the Bible, actually he died in the 32nd year, not 33rd year. So what modern historians do, they just start somewhere 25th December 1st AD, instead of going to or 1 BC 25th. So this is how they, but the problem is they are not able to arrive the exact date, because Jesus was not born on winter solstice day. Then you have to fix his birth in the January, means in the 2nd AD. But if it is 2nd AD, how can you start the Christian era from 1st AD? So they conveniently overlook all these factual problems in the chronology. They just very, very vaguely, and since they are faithfuls, I can say, they are not actually the researchers or the historians. They are the faithful, so they don't want to review at all first reading. They just blindly believe it. So this is the reason there is not a single research article on the epoch of Christian era. Why first AD has to be accepted as a historical epoch or chronologically verifiable an epoch? Because if it's a epoch or sheet anchor, it must have a independently verifiable evidence. But you can't arrive the exact date. So they just conveniently shift the dates and somehow 1st AD to 33 AD, they fixed the lifetime of the Jesus. But if we reconcile the information given by the various in various historians, as well as the information available in the Bible, he was crucified. As I established, you have to take back the Jesus birth by 660 years. Then he completed 30, his 30th year was 631 to 630, and his 32nd year after 629. 629 was actually second year of the 202nd Olympiad, and he was crucified on 1st April 629 BC, a Friday, and before the Passover day, which was the penultimate. The 1st April was actually the 14 Nisan, and the penultimate day of the 5531 of Anno Mundi, that epoch started from the date of, so-called from the date of Adam. And the day was 14th Nisan as per the Jewish chronology. And this is how they celebrated. First Easter was celebrated on 3rd April 629 BCE, that was Sunday. Now, when we shift the dating of 660 years, you have to shift the date of Julian calendar also. So when you have to reconstruct the Julian calendar considering the 702 BC, not 44 or 42nd BC, 704 BC, not 44 BC, the way the modern historians reconstruct the Julian calendar. Due to this reconstruct, if we reconstruct, it will accumulate an error of 4 days in weekdays, because due to the erroneous reconstruction of Julian calendar, there was an error of 4 days in the weekdays. This is the reason numerous ancient weekdays mentioned in the inscriptions of the Rome and various other areas, they are not able to establish the weekday. So they say there was another tradition of weekdays existed where actually Wednesday means Sunday. But this is actually a wrong conclusion. It's only an error in the chronology. Once you correct the chronology correctly, then every weekday can be easily established. This is another problem. It's very, very complex problem. This we will discuss later, because it's actually the reconstruction of how Julian calendar was reconstructed. If it is wrong, then we have to go back to another 660 years and then start reconstructing the Julian calendar, not from the 1st AD or 44 BCE. It cannot be. Then there would be a problem in arriving the weekdays also. So this problem we will discuss in another session. Now, if 660 BC was the original date of Jesus' birth, then how 1st AD became the epoch of Jesus' birth? This is actually mostly the Easter table. The Christians actually, they started following the Easter table instead of, because the Julian calendar was neither solar nor lunisolar. So they have to have an external unisolar calendars to fix a date in the Julian calendar. So that's why they prepared a table. And then why we started following this table, and then finally they said, okay, 1st AD may be the sheet, the year in which our God was incarnated. So what they did, they just actually, Dionysius Exiguus, he did not mention about the Jesus birth at all. He actually arrived at an Easter table of 19 years, and starting from the Anno Diocletian, he is referring to the Diocletian era and 248. So he actually used Diocletian era to arrive his Easter table. He never mentioned about the Jesus Christ. And one more thing, the rare manuscript of the letter written by Dionysius Exiguus, he actually wrote a letter to Petronius, and he is actually referring to 802 Annorum. So he is actually mentioning the 802nd year of the Jesus birth. He is not mentioning anything about 525 or 532. But what modern historians, they actually, I can say, they concocted, or actually they corrupted the text. Instead of D triple C 2, what they did D 10 10 10 and 2. This is how what they arrived 532. Actually, it was 802. So why historians distorted this date? It's the date mentioned. Actually, the original letter written by Dionysius Exiguus is actually mentioning 802 when he presented the Easter table, not 532. So 532 is dubious, fictitious, and they just based on that they arrived the date 1st AD as the Jesus birth. So Dionysius Exiguus never mentioned about the 1st AD at all. He used only Diocletian era. Now you have to arrive the epoch of Diocletian era correctly. There is an error. Modern historians, what they did, the Diocletian era and Martin's era, they fixed in 284 AD, considering both are identical, but both are not identical as per my research. So this is how what actually the modern historians actually concocted 1st AD is the epoch mentioned by the Dionysius Exiguus. That's not correct at all. Now the Christian tradition is actually talking about 42nd year of Augustus. Why not we get rid of all these nonsensical approach? We have to, why not we arrive the chronology up to Augustus so that our life is simple? Don't refer to 1st AD at all. You arrive the Augustus date. Once you arrive the Augustus date, then you fix the Jesus birth in the 42nd regular year of Augustus. Simple. But why you go vice versa? You just just assume the 1st AD as the Jesus birth, then start calculating the 42 years backwards. Then this may lead to a wrong chronological conclusions. So this is the reason why I say, let us not assume the 1st AD as the sheet anchor of world chronology. Instead, we have to fix the new sheet anchors to arrive the chronology, arrive the Western chronology and the Roman chronology, and fix the exact date of Augustus 1st. This is the, I can say, precondition to discuss about the date of Jesus' birth. But the modern Christian historians, last 300, 400 years, they adopted a fallacious approach and they assumed 1st AD as the Jesus birth and started calculating the backwards. So this is how there's the various, I can say they have mentioned even the various other like anno passionis, anno incarnationi, anno diocletiani, and then various councils dates are available. But for arriving these dates, we have to fix the date of Augustus first, not the Jesus. And how the Western historians followed. They actually followed the Nabo-Nassarian era, Olympiad era, Roman era, Augustus era, Antonius era, Diocletian era, Marcus era. Never continuously mentioned the Christian era at all. They just mentioned the years related to the Jesus birth with reference to Augustus, with reference to Olympiad, with reference to Nabo-Nassarian era, or with reference to Diocletian era. But they never independently used any epoch of Christian era prior to 14th century. Even the East, they followed the Anno Mundi, Seleucid era, Diocletian era, Martyrs era, they followed. After 13th, 14th century, when Christians started dominating the entire Western world, and they are following an Easter epoch, they wanted instead of using the other than Christian tradition, they wanted why not we use the 1st AD as an epoch. This led to establishing the Christian calendar. Then they followed that the Julian calendar has been reconstructed. When they have reconstructed, they found that there is an error of some 11 days. Then the Gregorian calendar. So they came up with the reforms in the calendar. This is how the Julian calendar was reconstructed, considering the epoch of 1st Jan 4713 BC. This is how the beginning of the popular use of Anno Domini or before Christ actually began around 16th century or maximum 15th century. That's all. And actually what I am saying, that actually the error in the Easter table followed by the Eastern Church was actually due to they followed Indian Shaka calendar. When Shaka calendar had been reset in 78 AD, so similarly, the Easter date also they started referring to the with reference to Jesus' birth. This led to the similar chronological error of 660 years in fixing of the date of Jesus' birth. This is the reason why Abul Fazl says a particular tradition followed the commencement of Christian era when the winter solstice was at 8 degree of Capricorn, whereas another tradition followed the commencement of Christian era when winter solstice used to occur at 0 degree of Capricorn. So this is how Lightfoot and they started the fixing of the chronology. They all assumed the first AD Jesus birth as the sheet anchor. This is the beginning of the reconciliation of the world chronology. Prior to that, every country or every civilization followed their own traditional chronology. But when this Western scholars, especially the Christian bishops and these Christian scholars started reconciling the world chronology, considering the first AD, all traditional chronologies have been proven as wrong. Why? Because the first AD itself was a wrong epoch to consider as a sheet anchor for the world chronology. So that's why I repeatedly say that the first AD does not deserve to be the sheet anchor of the world chronology. We have to arrive the chronology, Western chronology, up to Augustus without considering the first AD as the sheet anchor. We have to establish even ancient epochs like epoch of Olympiad, epoch of Nabonassar era, even ancient epochs, considering the archaeoastronomical data of Venus tablets, and there is abundant information is available to archaeoastronomical to fix the exact sheet anchors for the Western chronology prior to first dating. This is how we have to arrive once we go back, then the deluge date also we can fix, and the biblical chronology and various other epochs also we can adjust. These things I have already discussed. So what we need to do, we have to revise the chronology. Even the Achaemenid Empire has to be dated back to 660 years. The Achaemenid Empire actually commenced in the 1200 BC around. So that's why the Alexander Macedonian's date has to be fixed in the 992 to 984 BC. And this is how other Christian eras, and then we have to correct the entire Western chronology considering the sheet anchors. So what are the sheet anchors? First, we have to fix the biblical flood, and there is some astronomical references related to the biblical flood, related to a rarest conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Actually, they conjuncted twice in a year. That happens very rarely because both Jupiter and Saturn conjuncted, went into retrograde motion, and again conjuncted. So that kind of a rare conjunction has been considered as an epoch and counted the years by the Babylonian astronomers. They refer to the biblical flood. So that's why we can exactly arrive the date of the biblical flood somewhere in the May 3708 BCE. Then Sothic calendar and the birth of Abraham 2668. Now we can even reconcile the biblical reference that Hammurabi and Abraham were contemporaries, and we can arrive the date of Hammurabi considering the archaeoastronomical dating of Venus tablet. So I have worked out the Venus tablet has to be dated somewhere 2472 to 2454 BCE. If you calculate, because the Venus tablet was compiled or written during the time of Ammusadukha, or the fifth descendant of the Hammurabi. Then Hammurabi flourished around in the 27th century. He was the contemporary of the dating 2619 to 2578. Exactly, he was the contemporary of Abraham. And then the Venus tablets dating 2473 to 2453. And the second Sothic cycle of the Sothic calendar, Egypt follows. So based on that, we can even fix the year of Exodus, when Israelites fled from the Egypt under the leadership of Moses, and they settled in the land of Judea into 138 BCE after 40 years. Then date of Hercules, then the fall of Troy, Olympiad. So this is how we need to, what we have to do. Another problem is in the Diocletian era and Martyrs era, Western historians mistakenly considered the epoch of Diocletian era and the Martyrs era the identical, but they were not identical. Diocletian era commenced in 77 BCE, whereas the Martyrs era in 284. Due to this blunder, there is I think the German historians presented a phantom time hypothesis that there is a chronological error of 300 years. That is actually what actually they are pointing out, the error in this epochs. Once you correct it, that hypothesis of that phantom time hypothesis is totally wrong. It's only we need to correct the Diocletian era and Martyrs era were not identical. There are numerous papyrus documents. They refer to, they actually mention both dates in two different years. So that clearly indicates that Diocletian era and Martyrs era were never identical. So this is another blunder. Apart from that 660 years in dating of Jesus' birth, there is another blunder by the European historians. They considered the epoch of Diocletian era and the epoch of Martyrs era are identical. We have to correct these two errors, then the Western chronology can be. All traditional chronologies of the Western civilizations, and the traditional chronology of Egypt, traditional chronology of Greece, traditional chronology of Sumeria, Babylon, even Persia are perfectly okay, and Indian chronology is also perfect, what I have already established. It's only the biggest problem is we have mistakenly just believed, our faithfuls forced on us to believe that first AD is the Jesus birth. Actually, Jesus born 660 years back. Thank you, Aditya ji. Today I'll just stop my presentation here. So this is the chronological problem what we have to solve it. There was a historic person named Jesus, but certain mythological accounts like a virgin motherhood or like a resurrection or the miracles, these all have been actually added to his historical stories. But a person existed in the Jesus. He was crucified. Whatever the accounts have been given.
Actually, the even that is questionable, and I really love your presentation. Osiris, if you look at the Osiris story,
yes,
Osiris was also crucified. So
yes,
there is old Egyptian story from Old Testament where
yes,
even the Moses and I've done a lot of research on these topics of Osiris, which is a very commonly historically verifiable information. And the story of nativity was stolen from Yashoda and Krishna's birth, because it was a very common Greek story there. But anyway, these are all different theories are there. But nonetheless,
actually, this kind of the tradition is the Romans had this tradition, not the Jew. And there is another text, Taledot Ishu.
Correct.
Actually, another person called Ishu, at least as per my chronology, another 70 or 80 or 90 years before Jesus, he also claimed himself as the Messiah.
Exactly.
Then he was actually executed on somewhere on a tree or something. So he was not crucified.
Yeah. No, but the Osiris was crucified. Osiris was crucified.
No, yes. He was crucified.
He was crucified.
The this crucifixion theory may also be probably borrowed from other stories.
Correct.
Whatever the work, but a particular, because there is a timeline. Augustus was a historical person, and his 42nd regnal year is a historical year.
Correct.
If somebody existed, no problem, because as a chronologist, I have to follow the chronological information given.
That's right.
But the narrative related forgeries, I can't disown, or I can't say that those are correct, right?
Exactly. I think my focus is more on narrations, but Vedveer ji, as usual, a wonderful, documented presentation on this. And viewers, thank you for liking it. Do go to YouTube and share widely, because that's what it means, that we need to actually, what we are trying to do is we're defending against colonial imposition on our minds, or debunking colonial imposition on the minds of many people who are not belonging to that faith, especially natives.
Yeah, this actually real problem. My problem is I have to arrive the date of Alexander to reconcile the Indian chronology. So I
Correct.
can only, I have to faithfully, blindly believe that first it is the Jesus birth.
That's right.
And that is creating numerous problems, my traditional chronology.
And
So
imaginary
that's
date
why
of
I have to, huh, yes,
biblical zombie stories and biblical floods and Noah's
yes,
Ark. So all like
yes.
unimaginable, unreal stories.
Yes, yes. So there is a what I'm saying. I'm not saying that something I want to some gospel. I'm not giving any gospel like in the
Yeah,
Bibles. I'm saying there is a problem in the Western chronology.
that's right.
I'm actually inviting the Western historians to review the entire Western chronology. This why because we have repeatedly failed to establish the chronology of the second millennium BC. Why our model is repeatedly failing in last 400 years. If we are not able to solve in 400 years, we are not able to solve this problem in next 4000 years also. There is
No,
something serious problem in your chronology.
no, Western scholars will never do that because their whole civilization is based on a lie, which they've sold so much, killed so many people. And if they change this, then everything is gone.
Yeah.
Like pretty much that's the main problem. But I will thank all the Africans, all the native South Americans. Just today, I got a new friend. I never knew that she was working on it. And she is going to work with us on debunking the colonial histories of South America. Very prominent politician from South America, by the way. So thank you all for joining, and thank you all for listening. And let us see your comments because that's more interesting to me. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you all.